For better or for worse, the power of the written word has changed your life. Maybe you really loved reading the classics and you bawled your eyes out when Odysseus came home, or Jane Eyre left you unable to venture into attics. Or maybe you were watching the masterpiece that is Twilight and remember the exact moment Edward Cullen reminded Bella that this is the skin of a killer. Hold on tight, Spider Monkey. Whatever words moved you to tears or scarred you for life, you have a lot in common with a lot of people. From the days of cave drawings to Egyptian hieroglyphics to the printing press to fanfiction.net, humans have been writing. But knowing when writing is good is another thing, and so is being able to use that writing to do what you want. Hi. I'm Hank Green, and welcome to Fast Guides, a study hall series that explores different college majors. Do you remember your first story you ever wrote? I do. I'd love to hear yours. If you spent your childhood excelling in class writing assignments or thinking about how you'd tweak the fourth Twilight book, you probably already have a pretty good idea of what creative writing is. It's the kind of writing you find in books and plays and poems that are packed with prose that's expressive and defined by narrative craft. Creative writing comes in all kinds of genres. Poetry uses the meaning, sound, and rhythm of words to evoke a reader's experience. Then there's fiction, which tells made-up stories that are usually written in prose, everyday language without a rhythmic structure, and with or without vampires. But creative writing doesn't have to be made up. Creative nonfiction tells real-world stories. So even though you won't read much about actual vampires in that case, you could learn about real-life vampire bats or the Dracula fish. And biographies and memoirs tell stories about real people. Really, any kind of writing can be done creatively, but creative writing is usually distinguished from professional, academic, or technical writing. Those fields tend to focus on the content of the writing, what it says, rather than how it says it. But creative writing is all about vibes. It uses elements like style, craft, voice, and tone to make stories sound good and appeal to people. So even if you're not about to win a Pulitzer Prize, people still can't seem to put down your best-selling vampire romance. And writing engaging stuff has all kinds of practical uses. Mastering the written word can make you better at writing almost anything. Essays for school, memos for your job, YouTube videos about creative writing, strongly worded letters to your library about its lack of vampire romances, you get the drift. But creative writing also has a personal side. It lets you express yourself and stretch your imagination. For a lot of people, writing feels like a calling, something they couldn't stop doing even if they tried. Of course, anyone can do creative writing whenever they want, with or without a degree, but a creative writing major can give you the guidance, support, and opportunities to make your writing the best it can be. And one of the ways you'll do that is by reading. In literature courses, you will read works by all kinds of different authors in all kinds of different genres and analyze them, thinking about what the author is trying to say and how they're trying to say it. That might sound like when you read the Odyssey back in English class, and it's true, creative writing has a lot in common with English, which focuses on understanding and analyzing literature. At lots of schools, creative writing might even be part of the English department because the two fields are so closely linked. But in creative writing, your literary analyses are supposed to help hone your writing skills, which you will then put to work in other classes. You'll often choose a creative writing track based on the genre you want to specialize in. Typical options are fiction, creative nonfiction, and poetry, but some schools might offer playwriting for theater or screenwriting for TV and movies. Once you have chosen your track, you'll likely start with an intro class. Fiction writers might learn about setting, dialogue, plot, and characterization, while poets might learn how to use rhythm, meter, and imagery. Then there's workshops, any creative writing program's lifeblood, not the kind that sustains vampires, though. This is where you and your peers critique each other's writing to make it better. You'll also take technical courses where you analyze published works. Like if you're into fiction, you might take a technical course about creating mystery. Or if nonfiction is your jam, you might spend that time learning how to research your writing subjects. Some programs might ask you to take courses outside your genre too. After all, even vampire lovers need a little werewolf in their lives from time to time. Toward the end of your studies, lots of creative writing programs will ask you to create a thesis, which is usually a big body of original work in your primary genre. It might be a collection of dozens of poems, or the first 100 pages of a memoir, or even a full-length movie script. Your thesis is the final chapter of your creative writing major. It's where the story comes to a close, and you can finally look back and see how your work has grown along the way. Now, of course, everyone can benefit from learning to write creatively, but the people who tend to hear the siren call of a creative writing major love storytelling and are interested in making those stories compelling. Maybe you were the kind of kid who was constantly revising your supernatural fanfic on Archive of Our Own, better known as AO3, or maybe you love to spend your Friday nights ensuring that your slam poems meet with thunderous snapping at your local coffee shop. Creative writing majors spend a lot of time learning how to write better. So if you got the patience, drive, and introspection to match your creative energy, you might be a perfect fit. Writing can be a pretty solitary process, so it's good to make sure that you're okay with possibly letting intrusive thoughts win. But creative writing programs build a lot of community, too. After you spend all those hours on a deeply personal piece of writing, you'll turn right around and share it with your peers, which can be nerve-wracking and occasionally devastating. I speak from experience. But if you're the type who can lean into that vulnerability, you can step into a space where everybody's inner worlds are celebrated. Still, there's a flip side to that. If the idea of sharing your writing feels horrifying, a creative writing major might be a total nightmare. The workshopping process is fundamental to most creative writing programs, and putting your work out there to be criticized by your classmates can be very hard. Critiques are part of life, but if they never stop feeling like a wooden stake to the chest, you might think about a different major. And even beyond the emotional stress of workshops, creative writing is just hard. Your STEM friends are gonna love to wax poetic about the 75 math problems they have to solve by tomorrow, but the work of creative writing can be just as time-consuming and sometimes just as boring. And even if you love writing, there will probably be times when you have to push through writer's block to finish a project or meet a deadline. If you just don't want to mix business and pleasure, creative writing might be better as a hobby than a major. But if you decide creative writing isn't for you, there are lots of other paths you could head down. Like if you love to talk about books but aren't so sold on doing the writing yourself, you could major in English literature. Or if you're into something a little more practical and less personal, you could look at journalism or communications to put your writing skills to use in a different way. But if you do stick it out with a creative writing major, that's just the first book in your series. There are tons of paths in front of you, and if you play it right, the sequel can be even better. Now, I'm not gonna lie. Getting any writing job can be hard, especially if your goal is to be a straight-up author, poet, or scriptwriter. You might find yourself on a regular hero's journey, which is to say, things might be really hard for a while. Professional writers are a pretty small group. In 2019, they only made up about 0.03% of the US population, and breaking into that club can be tough. Lots of creative writers start out by turning to non-paying markets, like some literary journals, which often publish poems, short stories, and short nonfiction pieces. It can take a lot of time and effort to get picked up by a paying market, like a traditional book publisher. Even then, only about a fifth of full-time published authors in 2018 made all their income from writing. Which is not to say it's impossible. If you're lucky, you can even get really rich as a full-time author, but relying on book sales to pay your bills can also come with a lot of pressure and uncertainty. Luckily, you can always write on the side while working in any number of other industries, some of which are closely tied to creative writing. Like, even if you're not a full-time author, you could still work in the creative publishing industry. Jobs in that space really range. You could be a literary agent and help authors market their work, or one day you could become a publisher, getting writing over the finish line and into a bookstore. Salaries can vary a lot, but in general, literary agents and publishers in the US can make about $70,000 a year. And publishing is just one of a ton of fields where creative writers can find steady, decent paying work. All kinds of organizations hire people like copywriters, editors, proofreaders, and content managers to make content for stuff like ads and websites and social media. These kinds of jobs can be freelance or staff positions, and again, their salaries can vary a lot. But in general, you can expect to make something like $50,000 to $65,000 a year, with opportunities to make more as you move into directing or managing positions. And if you loved studying creative writing, there is another path you could check out: Getting a graduate degree in creative writing can give you the opportunity to explore the field even more and maybe open doors to more jobs. With an MFA or PhD in creative writing, you could become a professor and spend your time teaching and researching at a 4-year college or university. And even if your career goes in a totally different direction, being able to write interesting creative stuff can always help you out. So whether you are writing a newsletter for your middle school classroom, or a grant for your nonprofit, or the next Twilight series, your creative writing skills will be just like a vampire. Beautiful, multi-talented, very good at baseball, and immortal. So if you're ready to be the next Shakespeare or Homer or Stephanie Meyer, or if you're just a storyteller who can't shut up, a creative writing major can be a great first step on your hero's journey. Just like hanging out with vampires and werewolves, creative writing takes some serious backbone. But if you put in the work, you can end up with skills that fill your pockets and feed your soul. If you want to investigate more degrees before you choose a major, check out our other videos in this playlist. To find out how to earn college credit with Study Hall, go to gostudyhall.com or click the link here or in the description. It's a good way to get college credit for less than you would spend other ways. And if you want to help us out, give this video a like and a comment and let us know how you chose your degree or what you wish you'd known before you started your degree. Thanks, as always, for watching.